Welcome back to VIR. It's an absolutely resplendent day. Puffy clouds in the distance here looking over the North Carolina-Virginia border. And we are live here around the world for the VIR Speed Tour. And the paddock is, well, it's kind of withering out a bit because we're coming to the end of a good weekend of racing. So some guys are packing up and are going. Others are waiting for their race to get underway. We are getting ready for our next group coming up, which is 6, 8, and 10. And alongside me, Ben Cesar,
look at this.
Always.
So that's my GoPro camera there, and that is because this is Cesar Cohn, one of my favorite people here at in vintage racing. And Cesar Cohn, man, I love you. The Apex Vintage team here that helps him out. He has been racing for 60 years. Started at VIR, and this is going to be Cesar Cohn's last race, which it makes me kind of teary-eyed because this man has been a staple in racing. John Fippin's going to join us from Mid-Ohio, and I'm sure, John, you've announced some great races with this yellow car.
This yellow Alpha has been, you know, a hallmark of vintage racing for so long, and it's just hard to believe that we're going to have a vintage race coming up in November, and Cesar won't be behind the wheel. I mean, this car is in every race. And it's just so great to see him and so great to celebrate the fact that he started his career here at VIR and he's going to finish it here. That's a great bookend to a 62-year.
What else has he raced? Where did he start?
He's done SCCA. He's done all kinds of crazy stuff. Then, you know, just like any path of anybody. So he started in his early 20s, teens, and then, you know, family, colleges. So he kind of came out of it for a little bit and then came back. And then now, in just the last couple of years, it would be really, I would say, he raced probably 6 or 8 events with us a year. And in 2 different classes. So he was with us in the morning race in 1, 3, 4, 5. And now he's out here in this group 6, 8, and 12. So we're going to get to some more Cesar Cohn stories. But, yeah, I knew, knowing you've been at Mid-Ohio for so many times, that's one of his favorite tracks, and that car is just a staple there and super competitive.
I didn't know Cesar's backstory. What was his profession away from the racetrack?
I don't know either.
Yeah.
I usually do, but usually when they don't offer that up, I always ask him, and I'm sure I've asked him in the past, what did you do in real life? And he wouldn't offer that up, so, you know, I'm trying to, so let's just call him a race car driver.
That sounds good to me. Yeah, absolutely.
So this is group 6, 8, and 12. I'm going to go through the field here with the grid sheet that we have. So Scott Borchetta leading the field. I talked to Dylan, his crew chief, Dylan Hellman from Scott Borchetta Racing in Nashville, Tennessee. This, I don't want to commentate or curse this, but this will be Scott Borchetta's 20th feature sprint race in that car. It is finished every race under its own power, and I think it has finished first, maybe second, but I can't think of a time he's been second place in that Chevy Corvette with a 350 V8 under the hood, 1969 in the 6GT class. Right behind him is Robert Corzin. I gave him a fist bump for wearing those great gloves, the Day Glow gloves. So if you're a driver watching this, put on some Day Glow gloves. Get them from HMS here, and we're going to be able to talk about you a lot more because we're going to see your hands moving in the cars. That's a 2013 Ford Mustang Boss 302, Mark Hildebrandt in the 6GT 1972 Chevy Corvette starting 3rd, Sam Smith in 4th. In a 2005 Ford Mustang, Scott Kissinger in a 71 Datsun 240Z, John Cloud in 6th in a 1970 Grabber Blue Boss Ford 302. Jason Sessions, a group, he is in a 2013 Ford Boss 302 in a Group 6 car, Group 12 car, I'm sorry. I'm getting all mixed up. He is in a 6B production car. I'm going too fast. John Strauss, Group 12, Ford Boss 302, 2013. Tom Grudovich, man, the David and Goliath. He's out there in a Jannetta. Unbelievable. Group 8 Jannetta. Chip Stabler, Renee Tassila, Patrick Sessions, Eric Bowman, David Porter, Rick Ortman, John Nash, David Nicholas, Fred Beasley, Chris Fennell, Sharon Edelman, and another great blue Jannetta. Harvey Park, Cesar Cohn in that yellow 6.2. Scott Birkeland. David Bearden is not here today. He's got oiling issues, I think. And then Glenn Maurer in that Marlboro Alfa Romeo. Glenn, Logan, and Chase, I've talked to them many times. They are smiles as usual, just having a fantastic time. Some of the great ambassadors here in vintage racing. John Fippin, I know you're a Mid-Ohio staple at these vintage races, but is it fun to get to come and see the same people you see every year at the Mid-Ohio Grand Prix racing here at VIR?
Oh, absolutely, at any other track. And it's so wonderful for F4 and FR to be part of the SpeedTour events this year, and I get to see these vintage cars race at a lot of different venues, and it really puts a different spin on it. Still the usual suspects at the front, but it's always great to see these cars tackling a different racetrack.
Here we go, Jonathan.
Here we go. Scott Borchetta at the bottom of your screen, and the white and red Corvette flies into action as the green flag waves. The man who hasn't lost a race in Group 6 all season long and isn't about to start now here at VIR, but he did get a little touch in the first corner last time out. This time, the Mustang goes a little high and wide and loses ground to Borchetta, but Borchetta heads to NASCAR with a healthy lead, pulling away as he always does. But right now, Robert Corzine trying to keep him honest, trying to keep with him. And they had a good ding-dong yesterday, and I'm sure...
Nope.
Oh, the Stingray 63 goes off. That's Patrick Sessions.
And how do we know it's a 63?
Split screen.
Yeah, see, I love it. Here they
Jonathan,
come.
I have to correct you. On this side of the pond, we call it split window.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
But it's close
See,
enough.
that-
It's
I know
fine.
And we have hoods, not bonnets.
Yeah.
You're being semantics now.
Yeah, I am.
'Cause
I
you
am,
don't
absolutely.
You do say screen.
We do.
Yeah, yes.
Yes.
And then there is, talking of that, there's that Ford Escort, but the European version that Jonathan was talking about, just that was kind of like a daily driver for everybody where he grew up.
Absolutely, yeah. And in France, an Escort.
And look at that. So you can see his Robert Corzine's gloves there. This Mustang here, the number 200, that's Jason Sessions. And I got to give it up for Jason. Jason told me that he yelled at me today because I wasn't wearing my sunscreen, and he is a 3-time melanoma survivor. And he's doing a fundraiser next month in Jacksonville for melanoma. So Jason
Listen to him, Ben.
Sessions. Yes, thank you. Thank you for that.
No problem.
I don't mind being yelled at. Edward Savagian, who's going to join us in the booth, yells at me every weekend about that.
Good.
Look at this. Corzine is coming up behind
Yeah.
Borchetta. I was noticing him coming out of NASCAR. Corzine has better traction. I think Borchetta's got a little bit more power, but this is of two totally different ilks of cars.
couldn't be
Ford,
good.
Chevy, modern, vintage. They are running very similar times.
Yeah, it really is a chance to see the juxtaposition between a 69 and a much more modern 2013 car. But they are absolutely matched. As we mentioned yesterday, the Corvette seems to have the grunt.
Look at this. Mustang 240Z and a Ginetta going at it. 3 cars you don't often see on track. We had another car there off track. I think that was Mark Hildebrandt in that Corvette there coming into turn 1. But look at this. Corzine might have it.
Slight
He's
mistake
got
by
it.
Borchetta out of NASCAR.
Look at that. And Scott Borchetta, just like a vintage racer should, saw that he had been overtaken and didn't try to force the issue. And Scott is a patient driver. Been very impressed with his ability. And now he's going to just try to get him back.
Yeah, watch Borchetta build on the straight. This is where the Corvette really comes into its own. And I say the straight because it's the snake, and it's far from straight, but it's a long, long way to the next real corner, which is turn 10.
I've got to give a shout out to the Thomas Grudovich and that little Ginetta running 4th or 5th right now amongst all these muscle cars, the 240Z there in front of him. But that little Ginetta gets lost almost. It's so much smaller than most of these other cars.
That Mustang just looks like a tank behind him.
Yeah.
And that's John Strauss in Billy Griffin's championship-winning GT car from last year in Trans Am. But Grudovich, man, and I know he's had a lot of great battles with Glenn Stevens at Mid-Ohio. And those Ginettas, I mean, that is a car almost built for the twists and turns of Mid-Ohio. There's Hildebrandt.
Oh.
Pulled off where he was told to. That's unfortunate. That's a Duntov prepared car there. He was running 3rd place, and I don't know what happened there.
So
but
you can ask Savagian about that one.
yeah, doesn't seem too bad. Seems like it's in a spot where we're going to be able to keep racing. But yeah, we're in mixed group racing, like John alluded to. So Group 6 is like our big American muscle cars, 1972 or older. Group 12 is our American muscle cars and just big bore production cars from 73 or newer. And so Grudovich is really out of his class, driving out of his class. Like, to be able to keep up with that Mustang is amazing. But he is one of the greatest finesse drivers I've ever seen. So much so that Rick Parent, our old tech guy, asked me at Circuit of the Americas to put a camera in his car to make sure he wasn't doing something finicky. And we watched that thing back at the hotel, and Rick finally just said, wow, he's just a great driver.
Yeah.
He just doesn't put a wheel wrong, and I love when that happens.
Yeah, that's really good. What was he expecting to find?
Maybe a fifth gear or a nitro button, I'm not sure.
A nitro button, I love it.
Yeah, there you go.
And there's your buddy right there, David Porter, the Scotch, driving that, what I call European Ford Escort. Beautiful car.
That rallied too.
Yeah, they're great rally cars. Look at him hanging that rear end out there. That is a cool car. I used to have a 91 Escort GT. It was a great car.
Well, you know what that's like then. It's a great little car, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, there's not a lot of power, there's not a lot of grip, but it's a fun drive.
I don't have the talent for power. If it's over 2 liters, I can't drive it. I had a Mustang GT as a kid, and that was just trouble.
Yep.
There's Sharon Edelman. Now look at this shot when she comes through the next turn. You've never thought a Porsche 911 looked like a big car, but behind a Jannetta, it looks like it's like juxtaposed. Here they come up through the snake. You're going to see a great shot of him. That's John Nash there. He was awarded the VIR Gold Cup trophy this weekend. Jeff, his crew member, Lorna, his wife, they had a great time. We were able to surprise John with that, with Connie here from VIR. And look at him slide that thing through.
Went too far
went
that
a little
time.
too wide.
Commentators cursing. Save it!
I'll tell you what,
Did
that
he
was
save
a
it?
hell, yeah, just.
Oh,
I think.
yeah.
That was one hell of a save.
All right, so
because
look at this Porsche behind that Jannetta. That looks huge. It looks photoshopped.
That does, doesn't it?
Come on,
It just
Sharon.
doesn't look right.
Keep him behind you, Sharon. That's Sharon Edelman, one of our great families in racing. Her son, Owen, who was recently married and has a kid in Texas, races with us, a really good driver. And her husband, Graham, who isn't racing this weekend, but he's here. So that's 3
Look
Edelmans.
at it go, though. Oh, that's
racing.
straight.
Yeah.
It's got some power.
And then look at that. Corvette's coming back. Yeah, that Jannetta, man, she's a good wheeler. Here we go.
Now, this is incredible. He really does go too hot into 10, then gets it squiggled up. This is the moment. Watch this. How he saved that.
Yeah,
That
all
could've
4
gone
wheels
easy.
off the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
John Nash, the Brit.
You can't say that a Lotus Super 7 is not nimble.
No. Anything not.
Yeah.
Anything but.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now she's chasing down that BMW ahead of her down through the roller coaster.
Dave Nicholas and Nasdar, car that he won the Camel GT class in 1973, and it sat in a barn since '74. Just brought out. It was funny, we had a Cesar Cone roast last night, and we were roasting Cesar Cone, but I roasted David Nicholas because I was eating my meal off of the trunk of his car. And because it has that 1974 patina, I said, I feel like I need a tetanus shot after eating off the back of your car, because it's not polished, I'll say, but this car is completely polished. Behind the hands of Cesar Cone, ladies and gentlemen, there is a legend in motorsports. If you can race for over 60 years, you are winning at life.
Yeah, that's a
And
good
he
point.
is doing really well. This is his last race. We are seeing history here.
And he does the same thing with his car number that Paul Newman used to do. 62 is his car number, which in his case is the number of years that he raced. But the late great Paul Newman, when he ran not only vintage but in SCCA, his car number was always his age.
Wow.
And so, you'd see a 79 and think, wait, what?
Yeah. And
That's
Paul
wild.
Newman was still winning races.
He
in
was.
the late 70s, early 80s.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. But Cesar has wheeled that Alpha at a whole lot of racetracks for a whole lot of years. And what year's the Alpha? Let's see, it's 67.
Yep.
Okay.
That's amazing. And
Yeah.
you know what? He is the slowest talker in the world, but a fast driver.
Yeah.
He's
It's
got
a
that
great story.
thick southern accent, talks real slow. Now, Ben, I don't know if I want you to put a camera here. And then look at how fast he's driving. You know, it's just, you just wouldn't think it.
Yeah, exactly right.
And there he is. John Strauss coming up behind Sessions, makes the pass on the inside. Billy Griffin would be proud.
Yeah, our former GT champion.
So that should move John Strauss up to third overall. He is really doing well.
And Grudovich hanging right there still in
Look at
fifth.
that,
He is not
Grudovich.
letting these big Mustangs get away from him.
No,
And they can't see him half the
Yeah,
time.
that's-
because
exactly.
He's staying so close
they
to
don't
him
know
that
he's there yet.
they're like, there was a white car behind me, and they almost have to make a turn to know if he's still there or not.
And Grudevich leading Group 8, of course. In fairness, you know, it is a completely different race classification, and he's leading Group 8 pretty comfortably, actually.
Hervey Park now. There's a proper car.
Thanks for reminding me. So we'll go through that, John. So Robert Corzin is leading overall, but leading in Group 12. Scott Borchetta is leading in Group 6. Grudevich is leading in Group 8. In second is Jason Sessions in Group 6. And in third in Group 6 is Chris Fennell. And in second in Group 12 is John Strauss. Third in Group 12 is Scott Kissinger. And then in Group 8, it goes from Grudevich, from my scoring, to David Porter in that Escort, to John Nash in that Lotus 7 that we saw fly a little bit here between 10 and 11. There he is, John Nash. And look at Sharon Edelman, man. I love that SVRA Royal Blue Janetta. You know, nothing against Grudevich's Janetta. I think I like that, but for some reason, I usually like the Roadsters, but for some reason, I like the hardtop.
That little coupe
Janetta.
is nice. Yeah, no question.
Yeah, it really is. It's a pretty thing, isn't it? It's tiny, but it's very little pretty car. You wouldn't be intimidated to get in that and race it.
What's happening back here? There's our 63 Chevrolet Corvette that had a little bit of an off. And then here comes our leader, Corzin, with Borchetta pretty far behind him.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if Borchetta's going to be able to make this group.
I think the win streak may be coming to an end here.
Oh, no.
But he will still have his first place in Group 6. He's not really racing Corzin. Let's you know, I know Scott wants to win overall in every race that he's in. We could be racing shopping carts and he'd want to win everything. It doesn't matter. But, you know, he's also a very tactical racer, and I'm sure Dylan said, hey man, don't hurt your car, you're not racing that guy. So there he is. And then there's Scott Birkland, our Group 8 champion for the last 2 years, being followed closely by Glenn Maurer. Let's see if Glenn can take him here in that Alfa Romeo. That is a really cool car, that Alfa Romeo.
I like the line he took to give him the drive.
Yeah,
that was
look
nice.
at that. Now he's going to have a better exit speed coming out of there. Birkland doing what he should. Now he's going to duck right behind him. I don't think he's got the power that Birkland does. But that's some good driving there by Glenn Maurer, who, this is a funny story, John. We were doing the Music City Grand Prix, the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix in Nashville, and somebody from Trans Am called in a panic, like, we don't have a pace car driver. And I knew Glenn had bought tickets and was camping in Nashville, so I called him and said, hey, can you be our pace car driver for the weekend? And gladly, he was ecstatic.
Sure.
And drove the pace car for the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix in Nashville.
Wow,
what
a venue to do it.
Yeah, no kidding.
And he bought really nice VIP seats, but he's like, man, that was a pretty good seat too.
Exactly.
So now here he is, and his two sons are racing with us this weekend, Chase and Logan. It is a family affair, and funny enough, Glenn owns a circle track company, and Glenn, I forget the name of it, but I think it's funny that he's out here road racing when he owns a company that provides parts and services for circle track cars.
Scott Birkland has raced that Porsche for a lot of years too. I don't know exactly how many, but that's a very familiar livery. That 06 car is a staple in vintage racing for a number of years, I know.
Yeah, and it's odd to not see him at one of our events. He's one of those staples with SVRA, but I know he was an IMSA driver back in the day. But here we come back to the leader, Robert Corzin. I think it's those Day-Glow gloves that make you faster.
And he's running out of laps in terms of winning this race, because I think when he comes around, he'll have one more lap to go.
So watch his hands there. See the Day-Glow orange gloves? You can really see him working it. He's smooth.
He's
doing
smooth.
One corner, one turn there through Oak Tree, and that will gain you time. It's a beautiful car.
Yeah, every steering correction scrubs off a little speed. He's about to put a lap on Cesar Cone here,
which should be expected.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
after 9 laps at VIR with those two different cars, a 62, is it a 64, and a more modern Mustang with a lot more power. And now, we were explaining in vintage racing, it's up to the passing car to make a clean pass. It's up to the driver that knows he's about to be passed, or she is about to be passed, to just run the same line, to do everything predictable.
Yep.
And now it's up to Scott Borchetta here in that Big Machine Chevy Corvette to make a good, clean pass on Cesar Cone. And a lot of times, somebody like Cesar will just kind of point, and that point means not where I'm going. That means I want you to pass me on this side where I'm pointing.
Exactly right. Yeah, that's something they teach you in Road Racing School 101, you know, is how to be overtaken as well as do the overtaking.
Yeah. Just as important, to be honest.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Especially when you're slow like me. I do a lot of pointing.
Exactly, yeah.
Especially when you don't want to be hit like me. I can get the blame.
There he is, man. Strauss.
Third place.
Holding it down, Strauss. I love it. Can't miss that car.
No.
It's not one that they can come to Alex, our race director, and say, I didn't see him in the mirror.
You can't miss Corzan either.
Yeah.
These two big Group 12 contemporary, much more contemporary Mustangs, showing their heels to some of these older machinery, but you know, they're different classes. That's one of the blessings of vintage racing is you get to see multiple classes running at the same time. Cars with different strengths, you know, the nimble light Group 8 cars, you know, a little quicker through the corners perhaps, and the big muscle cars have a little more grunt down the straightaway. So
yeah.
Horses for courses.
And the beautiful thing about vintage racing, talking to people, is in other forms of racing, you race, let's say you race spec Miata, but then Mazda releases a new Miata and all of a sudden your car is almost obsoleted because of the technology. In vintage racing, you can basically build the car. If you build it to the rules the first time, you shouldn't have to build it again. It will never be obsoleted. You're going to be able to run in this group. You don't have to worry about the new big machinery coming in, because as we progress, we're going to make classes for the next generation of cars that come through. So as we're seeing now in like vintage Miatas, which sounds funny, but you know, 1989 is the first Miata.
Right.
And we've got a great field of vintage Miatas now. Here's the treacherous turn 10, just to your right. You can see the Sniffler throwing up that blue flag just as he should. This seems to be the battle, the Mustang and the 240. Jason Sessions, Scott Kissinger there.
Yeah, this is
third
good.
and fourth, yeah.
Especially as we're getting down to the nitty-gritty now. Oh, a slight mistake by the 204. The 202 is coming.
All right, now let's see what Borchetta. It looks like Borchetta's like, I'm going to win Group 6. I'm not going to put a wheel wrong, and I'm going to keep my streak alive.
Yeah.
But he's sliding that
I was
thing.
going to say, he's still pushing on.
Because he's doing R&D. He's going to be out in the TA2 race here later. So he's putting as much time on the track as he can. You'll notice that sometimes he'll do some experiments on the track, see where the grip is. So he's just really trying to learn everything he can to be able to use that. And an old American muscle car like that probably handles more like a TA2 machine than this car here we're seeing Corzin,
good point.
in that more modern Mustang, because Corzin might have some power and driver assist where a TA2 machine doesn't, more like a Corvette like that. But here is our leader. Congratulations, Robert Corzin. You got about a half a lap to bring that thing home.
Yeah, it's been an easy run. He took the lead. Obviously Borchetta.
I don't think Robert would say that was an easy run.
No, maybe not. But he passed Borchetta early on, and there's the gap you see between first and second. Borchetta leading into the first corner, but it wasn't long before Corzin was there right behind Scott as he was yesterday, but this time he gets the advantage. And as they head down towards the checkered flag, it's been a good run. Ben's going to head down and get his camera sorted out. We'll be turning our attention to, of course, Formula Regional, which is the single-seaters. John Phippen will be involved in that again. And it's been a good weekend of racing. We've had some stop-start in Formula 4, but we've had some good races as well. Checkered flag coming out. Let's just get him through. And there it is. Corzin wins then. John Nash just going through shot. And Borchetta will take second place. John Strauss will take third. And Jason Sessions fourth. But it's been a good weekend of racing, is what I was about to say.
No question. And again, it's so a pleasure for me to have the opportunity to see these vintage cars racing, as well as the more contemporary single-seaters that I call on a weekly basis, it seems. But yeah, it's great to see these vintage cars out here. Puts a warm spot in my heart because I'm kind of a vintage guy myself. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I didn't know how much I loved watching vintage racing until you're part of it. You don't really kind of necessarily think. And I had my mind blown when I was very privileged to do the Monaco historic.
Yeah.
And obviously just being there above the Rascas in a commentary booth is enough. But then to see these cars that went from literally the mid-30s all the way through to the modern car, and have guys like John Alesi and Matthew Brabham, et al., as it were, Eddie Irvine. It was great. So I just fell in love with it at that point. And then getting to know people like Scott Borchetta and his passion, seeing his collection for cars. And that's not a good sight. He's very slow through there. I wonder what is going on here. Is there a problem?
Yeah, it looks like he might be taking the shortcut there. Maybe he misjudged his fuel.
Possibly, yeah.
Had just enough to get across the line. There's Cesar Cohn in the background. We'll give one more salute to him as Ben is headed down to the podium. There'll be a special presentation to honor Cesar after his 62-year racing career, much of it here in vintage racing. And Cesar, we'll miss you. Hopefully you can pass that car on to somebody who can keep the legacy alive.
Congratulations. Yeah, what an amazing achievement, to be honest.
Absolutely. Yeah. Started here at VIR 62 years ago and finishing up here at the same place. A great legacy.
Yeah, no question about it. As you say, if he's always shown up in that car, then that's another side of it too.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's going to be an emotional moment. Got to be.
Yeah, for sure.
So just a confirmation of the results then from Group 6, 8 and 12. Robert Corzen with wins ahead of Scott Borchetta, swapping around from yesterday. John Strauss takes third place. Jason Sessions is fourth. Scott Kissinger fifth in the Datsun 240. And then Thomas Grudovich in sixth. Rennie Tricilla in seventh. David Porter in eighth. John Nash ninth. And Chris Fennell in 10th position in the Chevrolet Corvette.